Assalam Alaikum students. Welcome to the Bright Future Academy. Today we will study about the classification of proteins. In our previous lecture we have detailed discussed about the levels of organizations or structures of proteins like primary structure, secondary structure, tertiary structure and quaternary structure. Apart from it we have detailed discussed the Alpha-Helix Structure, the Beta-Pleated Sheets, Keratin structure, Fibrous structure and the globular structure of hemoglobin. So in this video we will discuss the classification of proteins, how proteins are classified according to their structure and depending upon the sequencing of amino acids. So if you want lecture on the structure of organizations of proteins, you can watch our previous lecture and do subscribe the channel, like and share the videos and give your feedback in the comment section below. So let's get started how proteins are classified into their major two kinds like fibrous proteins and globular proteins. As we discussed earlier, each protein is composed of hundreds of amino acids because amino acids are the building blocks of proteins and proteins are the polymers of amino acid. Proteins are formed when hundreds of long chains of amino acids linked together in a long chain, then one molecule of protein is formed. And each protein has specific characteristics depending upon the structure and sequencing and numbering or ordering of amino acids in it. Because of the complexity of structure and diversity in their function, it's very difficult to classify proteins in a single well-defined fashion. Diversity means variety of function. Each protein will perform its relative function according to its structure. However, according to their structure, proteins are classified as follows like fibrous structure and globular structure. So let's discuss what are fibrous proteins and what are globular proteins. So the first one type of classification of protein is fibrous proteins. The word fibrous refers to the fibril. These fibrils form a long chain and then fibrous proteins are formed. These fibrils or fibrous protein consist of molecule having one or more polypeptide chains in the form of fibrils. Fibrils means small and flat threads. These threads forming polypeptide chains in the form of fibrils and these fibrils form fibrous proteins. Secondary structure is the most important in them. As we discussed in our previous lecture, the secondary structure of hemoglobin and alpha-keratin structure of fibrous proteins. They are insoluble in aqueous media. These are the properties of fibrous protein. The first property is that they are insoluble in aqueous media. The question arises here is that why fibrous proteins are insoluble in aqueous media? The reason is that these fibrous proteins contains amino acids which are hydrophobic in nature, and hydrophobic means water repellent, those part of amino acids which repel water. In that way these fibrous proteins are not soluble in water. And in other sense, according to chemical laws, like dissolves like means polar solvents will dissolve only in polar liquids and non-polar solvents will dissolve only in non-polar liquids. So fibrous proteins are non-polar in nature and thus these are insoluble in aqueous media due to the hydrophobic part of amino acid. The second property is that they are non-crystalline and are elastic in nature. The question is there, why fibrous proteins are non-crystalline and are elastic in nature? The reason is that these fibrils are small or flat threads. These threads are very elastic, very silky and very flexible in nature. So that's why these are non-crystalline, means these are not in the hard form or solid form. So these are elastic in nature. The third property is that they perform structural roles in cells and organisms. For example, silk fiber from silkworm. Silkworm forms silk fiber with the help of its salivary glands. Basically, silkworm release saliva from salivary gland and salivary gland modified his saliva into the form of silk proteins. These glands are known as silk glands in the silkworm, and these silk glands produce fibrous proteins which is present in the silk fiber. And spider's web. Spiders produces their web with the help of silk glands in it. The posterior region of the silk gland in the spider's body produces silk protein, which then converted from soluble form to the hardened form. And that web or that silk protein of the spider's web contain fibrous protein. And silk fiber from silkworm contain fibrin protein. Fibrin protein then converted into fibrous protein. The next example is myosin. Myosin and actin, two important proteins which are present in muscle cell, and each muscle cell is subdivided into fibrils. So these myosin or muscle cell also contain fibrous protein because fibrils are present in the fibrous protein. The next example is fibrin of blood clot. And how fibrin of blood clot contains fibrous protein? The answer is that when a cell bursts inside our body or when tissues damage, this fibrin protein is present in the body's aqueous medium and are the part of blood plasma. When tissues damage, this fibrous protein goes to the wound site and converted into fibrous protein, which helps in forming blood clot that prevent bleeding or help in stop bleeding from the wound site. And the last example is keratin of nails and hairs. Keratin is a well-known and important protein which is present in the nails and hairs like alpha-Helix structure of fibrous protein, and it is also present in the horns of animals. The second type of the proteins is globular proteins. Usually they are formed in tertiary structure of proteins because they are in globular shape, and these are spherical or ellipsoidal due to multiple folding of polypeptide chains. Usually they look like a ball with many foldings in it, just like that, are in spherical form. Tertiary structure is most important in them. As we discussed earlier, in tertiary structure we have discussed the example of hemoglobin as a globular protein because hemoglobin contains alpha chain and beta chain. Alpha chain comprises of 141 amino acids and beta chain contains 146 amino acids and a heme group. Hemoglobin is a oxygen carrying protein and comprises of globular protein. They are soluble in aqueous media. These are the properties of globular proteins. The first property is that they are soluble in aqueous media. The reason is that these proteins contains hydrophilic amino acids or hydrophilic part of amino acids. Hydrophilic means water lover or water attractor. So it contains that part of the amino acids which are soluble in water, and according to chemical laws like dissolves like, which states that polar substances will dissolve only in polar solvents and non-polar substances will dissolve only in non-polar solvents. So these are soluble in aqueous media. It means these are polar substances and are hydrophilic in nature, water attractor. So that's why these are soluble in water media such as salt solution, like salt is also soluble in water. Solution of acids are bases. Most of the 95 to 99% of acids or bases which exist in nature can be dissolved easily in aqueous medium or aqueous alcohol. Water is also known as universal solvent because it has ability to dissolve most of the solutes in it. They can be crystallized. The second property is that these are crystallized in nature due to their globular structure. They are hard in nature and are crystallized in structure because of many foldings in it, like spherical or ellipsoidal multiple foldings of polypeptide chains. The third property is that they disorganize with change in the physical and physiological environment. It means no matter how the change occurred in the physical and physiological environment, they remained in their globular shape and doesn't change their structure. Examples are enzymes. Enzymes like pepsin enzyme. Pepsin is an enzyme that is present in the human stomach wall and converted HCl from its inactive form to in its active form and helps in digestion. The second example is antibodies. Antibodies like immunoglobulin, which are represented or which are known as IgGs. IgGs means immunoglobulins. Immunoglobulins are various kind of antibodies which are further divided. And hormones. Hormones like oxytocin. Oxytocin is present in the female body, and hemoglobin. Hemoglobin we have discussed in our previous lecture that hemoglobin is a kind of tertiary structure and contains globular proteins due to its alpha-helical structure, beta-pleated sheets, alpha chains, beta sheets, and a heme group in it. So it's an important question and there are more chances that you have to attempt this classification of proteins along with the structure of proteins in board exams. So hope you will understand it. Don't forget to subscribe the channel, like and share the videos, and please give your feedback in the comment section below. See you in my next video. Till then, take care. Allah Hafiz. Thanks for watching.